You are listening to The Vocal Technologist. Spoken tech for your ears.
You know, when we talk about a massively successful business, our brains automatically just kind of picture skyscrapers.
Oh, absolutely. Giant glass building.
Right. We imagine these sprawling corporate campuses, complex org charts, or like at the absolute minimum, a really crowded Slack channel.
Yeah, lots of middle management.
Exactly. But listen to this. Between 2023 and 2025, the number of solopreneurs, so one-person companies clearing $1 million a year, actually doubled.
Wow. That's a huge jump.
It gets crazier. The number of solopreneurs hitting $5 to $10 million, that tripled.
Triple just one-person shops.
Yeah, and they're doing it roughly 30% faster than the founders who started just like a few years before them.
It is a staggering acceleration. And the critical thing we really need to establish right up front for you listening is that this isn't an anomaly.
Right, it's not a blip.
Exactly. It isn't a statistical fluke or some weird accounting trick.
Right.
We are watching a fundamental structural change in the actual definition of what a company is.
Well, welcome to the deep dive. Today we are opening up a stack of late June 2026 newsletters from TLDR founders.
Really good stuff in this batch.
Yeah, and our mission with these sources isn't to talk about AI hype. I mean, we are moving way past the honeymoon phase of just, playing with chatbots.
Right, we're done with the parlor tricks.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Today is about mapping out the concrete mechanical shifts and how modern businesses are actually being built, defended, and scaled.
And when you look across all these dispatches, there is this recurring theme that acts as the engine for, well, everything else.
Which is what?
We are experiencing a massive shift in the fundamental unit of work.
Okay, unpack that a bit.
So for a long time, using AI meant a single interaction. You asked it to draft a polite email, it drafts the email.
Right, you ask it to summarize a PDF, it summarizes it.
Exactly. But the unit of knowledge work has totally shifted from that single interaction to long horizon, heavily delegated tasks. We've essentially entered the era of companies building companies.
Which is wild.
Yeah.
Because to understand how a single human being, sitting in their home office is pulling in $10 million in annual revenue, we really have to look at who, or rather what, is doing the actual labor.
Yes, the workforce itself has changed.
Right. There's this fascinating piece in our sources highlighting a startup called Polsia. So Polsia claims $10 million in annual revenue, but they don't employ a single human being.
Not one.
Not one. They use an army of AI agents. And there's also a YC-backed company called Thomas that is operating on a very similar, entirely AI-driven business model.
And the mechanism making that possible is what OpenAI's recent research really focuses on. We've moved away from the need for constant human hand-holding.
Yeah, the babysitting phase.
Right. In the past, the bottleneck was the prompt. Prompt response, prompt response. You had to sit there and babysit the machine.
Which was exhausting, honestly.
It was. Now, agentic tools operate independently for extended periods. They orchestrate tool calls entirely on their own.
So they're interacting with different software environments, hitting roadblocks, and troubleshooting those roadblocks.
Exactly. They iterate toward a final solution without you having to constantly watch their screen. It completely obliterates the cost of moving across task boundaries.
It essentially functions like an agentic assembly line, right?
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah, so a solo founder can just spin up complex back-end engineering on Monday and then switch to highly nuanced financial forecasting on Tuesday without needing an entire department of specialized humans for support.
Right. But just like a physical assembly line, in a car factory, there are risks.
Okay, what kind of risks?
Well, if the conveyor belt connecting the human manager to the robotic arm is broken, like if there is no clear handover protocol, the entire factory floor comes to a grinding halt.
Ah, I see. Anthropic actually published a framework specifically addressing that breakdown, didn't they?
They did. They call it optimizing human agent teams.
Okay, human agent teams.
Because you can no longer just throw a vague objective at an AI agent and, walk away to get a coffee. Anthropic emphasizes that this new assembly line requires continuous state synchronization.
Wait, hold on. Explain what state synchronization actually looks like in practice.
Okay, think of it like two chefs working in a very busy kitchen.
Okay, I'm with you.
If the human chef doesn't constantly communicate what ingredients they've already prepped, and the AI chef doesn't communicate what is currently in the oven, they end up duplicating effort. Or worse, burning the meal.
Well, that makes perfect sense. So you need explicit handover protocols.
Exactly. Without them, you experience something another source in our stack calls work whiplash.
Work whiplash, I love that term. That's the burnout you get from constantly shifting priorities and totally unclear roles, right?
Yeah, exactly.
We used to complain about work whiplash between human managers and employees. Now we're getting it from our software,
Because, frankly, human leaders are treating autonomous systems like mind readers.
which they aren't.
They definitely aren't. If you don't proactively close the information gap and explicitly define the boundaries of what the agent owns versus what you own, you end up wasting hours redoing the machine's work.
Which totally defeats the purpose. The human operator gets completely burned out by the very tools that we're supposed to, give them their weekend back.
Exactly. Which means the tools themselves have to evolve to accommodate this new dynamic. I mean, the web wasn't built for autonomous agents.
Right, it was built for human eyeballs.
Exactly. But that is changing rapidly. Google's Lighthouse, which is the main tool developers use to audit how well a website performs, is now grading websites on agentic browsing readiness.
That's crazy. They are actively scoring how well your site is constructed for a machine to interact with it.
Yeah. They are checking for very specific architectural markers. For instance, Lighthouse now audits whether a site uses WebMCP and has a sound accessibility tree.
Okay, for the non-developers listening, let's translate that a bit.
Good idea.
So if you are building a tool today, WebMCP is essentially a standardized protocol that lets an AI read your site's backend data directly and cleanly.
Right, without having to awkwardly read the screen like a human does.
Exactly. And the accessibility tree is basically the structural skeleton of your website. Historically, we used those trees so screen readers could help visually impaired humans navigate a site.
But now, AI agents are using those exact same skeletons to crawl through your software, click buttons, and execute tasks.
So if your website doesn't have that clean skeleton, the agent basically gets lost.
It completely breaks down, and we are seeing core business infrastructure being rebuilt from the ground up to accommodate this.
Oh, like Lightfield.
Yes. Take Lightfield from our sources.
Mm-hmm.
They are building a customer relationship management system, a CRM, but it is entirely agent native.
Meaning it isn't built for a human sales rep to log into.
Not at all. It updates itself automatically with every call, every email, every deal.
That's wild.
Think about traditional hiring. Your first human sales hire takes 6 months and like $120,000 in salary just to learn the context you already have in your head.
Right. The ramp-up time is huge.
But an agent plugged into an agent-native CRM absorbs all of that context instantly and just starts booking meetings while you sleep.
Wow. If you are listening to this and you're currently building a SaaS tool, this should really be setting off alarm bells for you.
Oh, absolutely.
Because if a single founder can use an army of agents to spin up a company, write the code, and manage the CRM almost instantly, how does anyone protect their business from being copied overnight?
They can't. Not with the old methods.
Right. And the conversation in these newsletters makes a very hard pivot here from how to build a company to how to defend one.
It forces us to entirely redefine defensibility in an age where digital replicas are essentially infinite and free.
Yeah, one of the sources, it's an essay titled "Every Moat Becomes Moot." It completely reframes how we should think about competitive advantage.
It's a great read. Historically, we treated a moat like a static wall. You secured a patent or you hoarded a massive exclusive data set and you just hid behind it.
But today, a moat is not a wall. It is an engine.
Exactly. And they point to Amazon as the ultimate proof of this concept.
Right, because Amazon is famous for its razor-thin margins. And from the outside, thin margins look like a vulnerability. But the source argues that Amazon's thin margins are the wall.
Yes, because fat margins are just a subsidy that funds your competitors' research and development.
Oh, that's such a good point.
If you charge a massive premium, you are literally inviting a competitor to undercut you. Amazon's real moat is their willingness to do the uncomfortable, highly complex, repetitive, and just unglamorous logistical work that their rivals refuse to do.
So the lasting advantage is the operational muscle to build the next advantage faster than your current one erodes.
Perfectly said. Now that foundational AI models are totally commoditized, meaning, everyone has access to the exact same baseline intelligence, the concept of the software moat is shifting.
It's moving from owning the data to owning the workflow.
Exactly. You build a moat by deeply embedding yourself into operational workflows.
So you have to capture high-fidelity enterprise interaction data. A generalized AI system like ChatGPT can scrape the public internet, sure, but it cannot scrape the proprietary loops of how a specific finance team approves an invoice.
Precisely. Mercury Command is a fantastic example of this in the sources. It's AI built directly into a bank account.
Oh, I saw this. In the old days, you'd export your bank data to a spreadsheet, run some formulas, maybe pay a contractor to figure out your runway.
Right, lots of manual steps.
But now, the AI executes that financial workflow directly inside the account. It eliminates what the source calls the switching tax, the friction of moving between tabs.
Rippling Data Cloud is doing the exact same thing for HR. They aggregate all your company data so the AI can answer complex employee performance questions instantly, right where the data lives.
Okay, but let me push back on this, because I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of a founder right now.
Okay, go for it.
If the new Moat is just workflow orchestration and eliminating the friction between tabs, doesn't that just mean whoever has the prettiest, most frictionless user interface wins?
It seems that way, yeah.
Like, what is the stopping force here?
Yeah.
The source mentions this concept of the minimum viable unit of saleable software. If my workflow tool is just a beautiful UI, what stops a rival company, or even my own customer, from just having a large language model rebuild my entire product for free over the weekend?
That is the existential threat for every software company today. And the answer lies in what the architectural pieces in our stack called the zone of viability.
The zone of viability, okay.
It is a calculus of effort versus ongoing cost. Yes, an LLM could theoretically rebuild your beautiful UI over the weekend, but software that sits inside the zone of viability is sufficiently complex and carries enough of an ongoing maintenance burden that buying it still beats building it.
Oh, I get it. So if my workflow tool sits below that threshold of complexity, I don't actually have a business.
Not a defensible one.
Right. My customer will just prompt an AI to recreate it because maintaining that AI-generated code is less of a headache than dealing with my corporate procurement process and paying my monthly subscription fee.
Precisely. Which leads us to the most fascinating structural defense mechanism discussed in these newsletters, evils as IP.
Ah, evils. This concept completely changes what makes a tech company valuable. Break down what an evil actually is for us.
Sure. Evils are evaluation frameworks. They are the rigorous rubrics used to systematically measure and improve how an AI system behaves.
Okay.
As we rely more heavily on autonomous agents, the true intellectual property of a tech company is no longer the code they write. The code is cheap.
Because AI can just write it.
Exactly. The strategic IP is the evaluation suite that captures incredibly subtle nuances of human judgment.
Let's ground this with an analogy. I like to think of evils as like a sommelier's palate.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, so anyone can go out and buy the exact same grapes. That's the commoditized large language model.
Right.
But what makes a high-end winery valuable is the master sommelier who tastes 100 different barrels and knows exactly which one has the perfect balance of acidity and oak to pair with a specific meal.
That's a great comparison.
So the evils are that expert palate translated into software. It's a proprietary grading system that determines if an AI agent is breaking down a task correctly, using the right tone for your specific industry, and executing safely.
That is a perfect way to conceptualize it. The best companies are treating these agentic evils as their core governance layer.
It's their secret sauce.
Exactly. If you have the absolute best grading rubric for how AI should behave in, say, the legal sector, no competitor can easily replicate that judgment.
And you desperately need that defense because traditional software moats are just evaporating overnight.
Totally. The sources specifically highlight the collapse of cybersecurity moats, for example.
Right. Historically, cybersecurity incumbents were protected by the sheer pain of switching costs, which is too risky and exhausting to rip out one massive security system and install another.
It was a nightmare for IT departments.
But AI agents can now fully automate vendor migrations. They can evaluate a new product, map the integrations, and execute the switch in a fraction of the historical time. The friction that protected incumbents is just gone.
And if the friction protecting your customer base disappears, you can't just sit back and play defense. You are forced into a purely offensive posture.
You have to attack.
Right. Which brings us to the next massive shift, go-to-market strategies. If everyone is moving at the speed of light, how do you actually acquire customers in a saturated market?
You get aggressive.
Yeah.
And if we're talking about offense, we have to talk about the steal a customer base strategy.
Oh, Cursor story.
Yes. The breakdown in our sources of Cursor taking on Microsoft's VS Code is an absolute masterclass in counterpositioning.
It really is.
For some context, VS Code is Microsoft's massively popular software editor. Almost every developer uses it. Cursor wanted those developers, but the hardest part of software sales is convincing a user to abandon their muscle memory.
Nobody wants to learn new shortcuts.
Exactly. So Cursor didn't ask them to switch.
They executed a brilliant fork. They took the open source foundation of VS Code and essentially cloned it.
They stole Microsoft's house, but they left all the original furniture exactly where it was.
I love that analogy.
So when a developer opened Cursor for the first time, every single extension they relied on, every keyboard shortcut they had memorized, every ounce of their workflow came along for free. The developer didn't even feel like they had moved.
But under the hood, Cursor had completely rebuilt the engine to be entirely AI native.
And the true genius of that strategy is the trap it lays for Microsoft.
Oh, it's brutal.
Microsoft is standing outside the house, unable to change the locks. If Microsoft tried to rebuild VS Code as deeply around AI as Cursor did, they would inherently break the architecture that supports their massive legacy ecosystem of third-party extensions.
They are paralyzed by their own success.
Exactly. Cursor used Microsoft's size against them to hold the door open and pull users through.
It's brilliant. And we are seeing that same aggressive rethinking of customer acquisition in consumer apps, too. The Cal AI playbook is outlined in our stack.
Oh, the calorie tracking app.
Yeah. They built a calorie tracking app and went from 0 to the #1 health app in the App Store in 18 months.
Which is insane how they do it.
Entirely through influencer marketing. But they threw out the traditional rules. They treated influencer marketing like algorithmic science. They completely ignored follower counts.
Which feels entirely counterintuitive.
Right.
Instead, they judged creators purely on their baseline views and how active their live comment section was. They only paid flat rates. So if a video went incredibly viral, their customer acquisition costs plummeted. It didn't cost them a penny more.
The underlying psychology is what makes their approach work. The source points out their core philosophy of the name. You aren't renting the influencer, you are renting the audience.
We're renting the audience.
And because of that logic, they targeted mid-sized creators in totally unexpected niches.
This brings up my favorite specific detail in the entire deep dive. The sources note that a TikTok dancer actually outsold professional UFC fighters for this calorie tracking app.
It sounds made up, but it makes so much sense.
On paper, athletes should sell fitness apps.
Mm-hmm.
But when you dig into the why, the mechanism becomes clear. UFC fans are watching for pure entertainment. They are passively consuming violence.
All right.
A dancer's audience is entirely different. They are focused on body movement, mimicking choreography, and mirroring the creator's lifestyle. That audience is primed to track their physical habits. They are much more willing to click a link.
And Cal AI managed hundreds of these highly targeted partnerships with a team of just 4 people.
Ow.
By automating the entire outreach pipeline with agents. Because the only moat left in consumer go-to-market is sheer speed.
But speed only matters if you are selling the right thing. There's a major debate happening in these newsletters about selling end-to-end applications versus selling infrastructure, the whole build the agent versus power the agent dichotomy.
The old picks and shovels debate. If you build a bespoke vertical application, let's say, an agent that completely automates medical billing for dentists, you can capture a very high initial contract value.
Because you are directly replacing expensive human labor, and dental practices will pay handsomely for that immediate outcome.
Exactly. But the sources suggest the long-term defensibility might actually lie with the infrastructure platforms, the tools that power the agents.
Right. Look at a company like Haystack, which provides the orchestration layer for building large language model applications, or Lambda micro VMs.
Yeah, Lambda is a great example.
Let's pause and explain what a micro VM actually is, because it's critical to understanding the infrastructure play. If you have an AI coding assistant that is generating new code on the fly, you cannot just let that AI run untested code directly on your company's main servers.
No, that would be a disaster.
It could accidentally delete your database or open a huge security flaw. You need a sandbox. A micro VM is essentially a tiny, secure, temporary computer that boots up in milliseconds, lets the AI test its code safely, and then destroys itself.
Providing that essential orchestration and safety layer offers deep structural defensibility. It is much harder to rip out the foundational safety plumbing of your engineering team than it is to swap out a medical billing chatbot.
Very true. Yet even if you have the right infrastructure product and the perfect moat, founders are still stumbling at the finish line when it comes to actually making money.
Yeah, pricing is tricky.
The dispatch, outlining the 7 mistakes founders make. When chasing their first deals is a tough read. Founders delay selling because they want the product to be flawless. They rely too heavily on feedback from a single, overly vocal beta customer.
But the most fatal mistake is underpricing. The sources outline a massive trap called the zero-margin cost-plus dilemma.
Walk us through the mechanics of that trap.
Right now, a lot of AI companies are essentially just acting as middlemen for OpenAI or Anthropic.
Okay.
If you charge your customer based on the raw computational cost of the inference, meaning you track how many API calls your software makes to the LLM at a tiny markup and pass that cost to the user, you are in a race to the bottom.
Because the cost of compute is constantly dropping.
Exactly. You have to shift to value-based pricing.
Meaning you charge for the business outcome the agent achieved. If your agent saves a company $50,000 in manual data entry, you charge a percentage of that $50,000.
Right.
You do not charge them for the 42 cents of server compute it took the AI to do the work.
Exactly. And if you fail to establish that value-based pricing early, you fall into the most dangerous illusion mentioned in these sources, fake traction.
Oh, we need to warn people about this. What is the difference between real traction and fake traction?
Fake traction is when a founder confuses early market curiosity with actual investability. Everyone is desperate to play with the shiny new AI toy.
Right, the hype is real.
So you might launch a product and immediately get a massive spike in signups, or secure 3 pilot programs with recognizable brands. You take those vanity metrics to a venture capitalist and claim you have explosive growth.
But the investors are looking for risk reduction. Early interest just proves people are curious.
Exactly.
If those curious users aren't converting from free pilots into paid, deeply embedded operational workflows, if they're just kicking the tires to see what AI can do, that traction will completely evaporate the second investor due diligence begins.
Fake traction will get you a coffee meeting. It will not get you a check.
Well, taking a step back, this has been an incredible journey through a radically changing landscape.
It really has.
We started by looking at how solopreneurs are utilizing agentic assembly lines to scale past $10 million in revenue, bypassing traditional hiring completely.
Then we explored how the very nature of defensibility has shifted.
Right, away from hoarding data to owning the workflow orchestration and building evils as a proprietary sommelier-like grading system. And we saw how hyper-aggressive go-to-market strategies like forking legacy ecosystems, automating influencer pipelines, and navigating that zero-margin pricing trap are required to actually survive.
Which brings me to a final lingering thought I really want to leave you with.
Let's hear it.
It is based entirely on that concept of the minimum viable unit of saleable software. We've spent this entire discussion applying the zone of viability to companies, but I want you to apply it to your own daily job.
Oh, applying the moat to the individual.
Exactly. Look at the unique value you provide to your employer or your clients right now. Ask yourself, are your personal skills currently sitting above that zone of viability?
That's a tough question.
It is. Is the complexity of your judgment, your relationships, and your problem solving high enough that it is more cost-effective to retain you rather than having a large language model rebuild your role?
What?
Because as the cost of raw intelligence trends towards zero, the only moat you have as an individual worker is the exact same moat Amazon has as an enterprise. It is your willingness to do the uncomfortable, highly nuanced, repetitive curation and relationship building that the model simply will not do.
That is a profound question to chew on this week. Are you the human sitting on the assembly line doing the manual labor, or are you the one designing the handover protocols? Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. As you navigate your own work over the next few days, take a hard look at the tools and workflows you rely on, and ask yourself, is this an engine or is it just a wall waiting to be climbed? We'll see you next time.
Spoken Tech for your ears.